everyone, and welcome back to the Travel and Tourism Podcast, my first season. My guest today worked for Club Med from 2002 to 2008, and then he went back in 2010 to 2012. He held such positions as mini club, land sports, ski instructor, and chief of sports, to name a few. His first season was in Club Med Sandpiper as a mini club GO. Before Club Med, he was a PE teacher. He hiked all 211 miles of the John Muir Trail with his father, and he did the hammer throw in college, where he studied kinesiology. Please help me welcome, from Red Bluff, California, now living in Las Vegas, Nevada, Brian Tranbarger. Hey, Brian, how are you?
I'm doing great, Greg. Thank you for having me.
Well, thanks so much for agreeing to come on. I like when people say yes. Okay, makes my job so much easier.
Glad to be here.
Okay, you ready to light this fire, as the kids say?
Definitely. Okay. I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, so Red Bluff, I've been looking up some photos of Red Bluff, California. It's awfully beautiful, right? Like, are you surrounded by water on both sides? Because I saw this photo of Red Bluff. It almost looked like Cancun, like where Cancun's on this peninsula. Is this right, or is Wikipedia wrong?
Well, I mean, I would like to say you're right. It's not quite that luxurious. It is in California, and it's definitely it's up north. It's got lakes and rivers. But we are about a 2.5 hour drive from the ocean. So we're definitely not surrounded by the ocean, but plenty of lakes, lots of rivers. So we have the Sacramento River, I guess that runs through it. And then, Lake Shasta, Lake Oroville, Whiskey Town Lake, quite a bit of water, but not a peninsula, so to speak, but a beautiful place all the same.
You have a big rodeo there, no?
Yeah, we do. At one point was the largest 2-day rodeo in the world. Home of Red Rock, the bull that was only ridden by one cowboy. The movie 8 Seconds was actually based off of that bull, and he came right out of Red Bluff.
Oh, was that the bull came out, or was that Lane Frost?
That was. Look at you. Okay. Yeah, Lane Frost, played by the late Luke Perry, yes. Back in the 90s, I believe, maybe a 95, 96 movie. Yeah,
I like that movie.
Yeah, so, good one.
So Lane Frost is from your neck of the woods?
Lane Frost is he's not from Red Bluff. The bull was raised in Red Bluff.
Oh, boy. Okay.
Yeah. And if you want a short little story to start, that bull was raised and then retired in Red Bluff. My mom taught 3rd grade right there in Red Bluff, and they brought the bull after it had been retired to the school and let kids literally sit on the bull and take photos.
No, are you serious?
Serious. So if you ever want to know a little bit about rodeo, watch the movie, you'll learn. But those bulls, they go crazy for a hot minute. But man, when they get retired and they don't have the cinch on their groin, they're quite docile, and kind of neat to see that.
Wow. Okay. I never thought anyone would stick a kid on the top of that thing, but okay.
Yeah. The whole 3rd grade class.
All right. And I have some questions about the hammer throw, because I've never met anyone who's done it. Now, this is going to be a compliment. Okay. So please take it as such. Okay. Like, I always wondered why anyone would want to do that sport in track and field, because this is the one where you're spinning around and around really fast, right? Like centrifugal force off the charts. And then you're hoping to throw it where you're supposed to. Am I right? That's the hammer throw, right?
Nailed it.
Okay. Yeah. Now, how do you not miss? Like, how do you know when to stop that? Are you counting in your head or something? How does that work?
Well, if you watch enough YouTube, you'll see plenty of hammers going the wrong way.
Yes.
Yeah, but it's all about timing, and obviously you practice, and with anything, things go wrong. But you just hope the majority of the time the hammer goes the right direction. And surprisingly, it just becomes one of those impulses. When your foot hits the ground, when the ball is up or the ball is down. We refer to it as the ball. I mean, I sent plenty of hammers into the net, but I'd like to say the majority of my hammers went out into the field.
Okay. Now, at what point was it during college that you heard about Club Med, or you heard about Club Med before, but you'd never really gone there? Like, do you recall where you were or when you first heard about it?
100%. Yeah, and I bet most geos, I would think, because for the majority of us, Club Med was such a positive and fun thing. You like to look back onto your first season and to why you ever did it. I can remember vividly and being at Chico State. One of my roommates by the name of Nick Bernardo, good friend of mine still. He one day we're having a conversation. He says, "Brian, you would love Club Med." And I'm like, what is Club Med? Why would I love it? He's like, "I just went there with my dad. We went scuba diving. Yeah, you'd be great. You'd be the perfect towel boy. You hand towels to the girls and they'd love you." And so that was really the first time I'd ever heard of it. And I didn't think much of it. I mean, obviously it sounded great, but I was still at Chico State studying. At the time I had a girlfriend, and we'd been together for a few years. Another year after that, we decided to go our separate ways. I mean, typical young love. You think you're going to go get married and have kids, and life happens. I graduated from college and I was like, man, I really don't know what I want to do right now. And my buddy Nick again said, dude, look at Club Med. So I literally went online. I just sent in a random application. I got a phone call 3 days later, and I'd say a week later, I was putting my stuff in a storage unit, and they sent me to Sandpiper.
So your interview wise, did they make you do anything? Was it just a one-on-one interview? Do you recall that?
Yeah. Yep, I do. I don't remember the girl that did my interview, but I remember going down to San Francisco. It was about a 4-hour drive. Drove down there. I met, I can't remember her name for the life of me. Super nice girl. She'd been a GO, and we met in a coffee shop. She asked me about 6 or 7 questions. And I remember being nervous because I was never a big dancer, and I'd heard about the dances that you had to do. And I'm like, I gotta break out of my shell if this is going to be a thing that I do. And so one of the things you had to do, you had to perform something, I think, in the interview. And because I came from Red Bluff, country swing is just kind of a natural thing you learn when you're a kid. And I'm like, we'll just give it a shot. And so I stood up and I did a little country swing with the girl who did my interview. And I don't know if that sealed the deal, but like I said, I think I was called like 3 days later, and off I went.
Hold up, hold up, 1 second. So is this is this the same as line dancing that I see in the movies? Like country line? No,
no, it's not. It is a little bit more like, if you look at swing dance to like the Roaring Twenties tunes, that's a little bit more organized. Swing dance country style is very similar moves. It's a little bit more chaotic.
Okay, so you did this with someone who hadn't done it before?
Yeah, she was good because she'd worked Club Med, so obviously she was willing to kind of stand up and do whatever. And we didn't put any music on. I just did a couple little turns and said, "I'm going to teach you a couple moves," and boom, there we have it.
But let me guess, you had achy breaky heart running through your head though when you're doing
Yeah,
this, right?
yeah.
No? Okay.
Back then, that's about right.
Well, you're probably the only ex-GO that got a job because of wow, I've never heard that. See, this is why I like this show, because everyone's origin story is completely different. So you're the first and only one I've heard like that did that during their interview. So congrats.
Yeah, thank you.
Is there a video of this anywhere online?
No, I mean, this is really, it's funny. It's before iPhones, right? This was 2002. So, yeah, I'm sure we'll touch on that, but the beauty of not having people recording anything and everything all at the same time, it's unfortunate yet fortunate. So yeah, I wish I had a video of that, but at the same time, plenty of other things I'm glad we didn't have iPhones for.
Well, did you ask for Mini Club, or that's where they put you?
So somebody, I think maybe the recruiter, I remember asking, "Hey, what do I have to do? I'm ready to go. I want to get out and do something, different." She said, "Well, we really need people in the Mini Club working with kids." And luckily, I studied kinesiology, but I also studied, it was kind of a joint degree. It's kinesiology and teacher education. So I knew I wanted to get into teaching at some time. Club Med wasn't my end game at this time. I thought, I'll do Club Med for a couple of years or maybe 6 months and leave. So I loved kids, and I still love kids. I've got 2 of my own now. And I'm like, yeah, sign me up for Mini Club. No problem. So that was an easy sell for them, because lo and behold, there were 3 guys on the Mini Club team, and I think 45 girls. So I understood that there was a need for kind of a male position there. And I mean, do the math. It was great for the three guys.
Oh yeah, and you luck out by having Hammer as your chief of village, right?
100%. You can't get any better than that.
So do you remember anything of that? Were you like wide-eyed and bushy-tailed when you arrived? Were you nervous? Were you any? I guess there wasn't much Club Med culture shock because it's Sandpiper, right? I mean,
A lot of culture shock. I just being a Northern California small town, I didn't know much. No offense, but I didn't know they spoke French in Canada. It was one of those things. I was ignorant. I didn't know much about my neighbors. And walking into Club Med and being greeted in French, I thought, what is going on here? Good old David was the man that greeted me. You guys all know David. Yeah, I won't go into that, but I still love Dave till the end. But yeah, I saw people on a microphone, I saw people dancing, I saw people wearing all white, and I thought, man, I don't know what I'm getting into. But it was, I think we all kind of had that little shock when we walked in our first time. And luckily, I like you said, I had Hammer. I had a handful of other great GOs. I mean, just to name a few: JP DeLay, JK, Nicole Cooper, Aranio Ortiz, Bruno Santos, Boone was there, Adam Macy was there, Trevor Ray was my chief of mini club. I mean, James Martin was there. I mean, I probably missed 30 other, classic GOs, but I really came in at a sweet spot.
wow, yeah, I know almost everyone you mentioned, but I didn't know you had all that talent there. Wow, that's pretty cool.
Oh, it was a dream team. I think a lot of them had just come from Cancun. Jennifer Lopez was there. I mean, that woman was amazing. I mean, obviously we've lost her now, and that, I mean, to get, and I got to work with Jenny a few times, and that was a treat. And yeah, as Vlad Malin, David Mayer. I mean, the list goes on. Hammer is obviously the best when it comes to getting a team together. And I tell you, I mean, if there couldn't have been, I mean, if you would have been there, maybe it would have been perfect. But other than that, it's pretty nice.
Yeah. Oh, that's a pretty good first season, man. You lucked out for sure.
Definitely.
Well, I don't want to move on. Like I do want to get to Krista, but I do want to know if you got did you make any rookie first season blunders that season, or did any one story come to mind that you could share?
I mean, this is how green I was, and I don't know. This is probably a good thing. I remember after about 2 weeks, 3 weeks, realizing how amazing of a leader Hammer was. I mean, I loved meetings. That might sound dorky, but listening to him speak, I was so motivated. And of course, I'd never been anywhere else. So hearing the words Turks and Caicos and Punta Cana and Crested Butte, at first I thought they were people because I didn't know what villages really were. I mean, I was green, and I eventually learned, those are the places I want to go. But I loved listening to Hammer speak. And I remember it was Western night, and I had been, up at 8, and it was 5:30. The last kid left, and then I was back at the bar at 6:30, and I didn't shave. And back then, there was no 5 o'clock shadow allowed. You had to be clean shaven. And I just remember thinking, oh my gosh, I didn't shave. And I didn't shave that morning, so it was from the day before. So, and I don't have a lot of, at the time I wasn't a really facial hair guy, but I just remember hearing in one of the meetings, clean shaven, no ripped jeans, no tattoos, none of this, and in a good way. But I remember being at that bar just sweating bullets, thinking, man, if Hammer walks in here and sees me, he's going to send me home. I'm never going to work for Club Med. And sure enough, Hammer came in. And at the time, I think I'd had 2 conversations with Hammer. He was the boss. I was just the first season GO, and he walks up to the bar. I was one of maybe 6 GOs there. He looks at me, and I'm thinking he's going to fire me right here. And he asked me, "How you doing, Brian?" And so he knew my name, which amazed me from there. And he bought me a drink. That was back in the day when there was bar books and things like that. He asked me how my first couple of weeks were going. He told me that some GMs had said that their kids were having a great time in the mini club and they loved me, so that made me feel good. And he said, just keep up the good work. And then they left. And I remember thinking, oh God, he probably wanted to say something about my 5 o'clock shadow, but I'll take it. And I'll always remember that. And I think I shaved twice a day from there on, just making sure I never had that feeling again. But I do remember that like it was literally yesterday.
I guess you couldn't pull the old argument that, well, it's cowboy night. Cowboys don't shave, right? I would have had that one in my pocket. I don't know about you.
I think it might have been there, man. I think
Okay.
you and I think alike. I think that was ready to go, but I didn't have to use it.
Okay, good, good. All right. Then after Sandpiper, you go to Crested Butte Mini Club. I see her with Gus. So that would be Gus from Australia, correct?
Yes, Mr. Luke Neal.
Yes, Luke Neal. Wow. Okay, I wasn't aware he did Crested Butte. So did you learn how to ski in Red Bluff? Like I know you became a ski instructor. So where did you learn? Did you learn in home in California?
There was a small mountain called Mount Lassen, that was about 45 minutes away from my house. And then there was Mount Shasta, I think is maybe the second tallest peak in the contiguous US. A little fun fact. And they had, that was about an hour and a half away, and they had snow there. So I skied from a young age. So I immediately got to go out with the kids in Crested Butte, which was just a dream. But yeah, I already had some ski knowledge.
Okay. Was there snowboards around in 2003?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
there were.
Okay.
We had snowboard instructors. Bruno Santos was there. He was teaching snowboard. We had a bunch of Brazilian guys, amazing guys. Yeah. And yeah, we had snowboard back then. I actually learned to snowboard in Crested Butte.
Okay. All right. Good. And I assume Gus was pretty heavy on animation, right? Because I worked with him when he was chief of animation, so I can imagine as a chief, he was everywhere and doing everything,
Yeah.
right? All the shows and playing the violin and didgeridoo.
You got it. His sister was there, Alex. She was our choreographer. By this time, I was very excited about performing. I'll digress. But back in Sandpiper, I was afraid to death. First crazy sign, I was in the back. And then I think at one point, Trevor grabbed me and said, "You're going to be at the front." Eventually, Vlad was definitely a big part of that. He said, "We're going to be in some shows, man. You're going to love it." JP DeLay, I still remember him telling me, and I'd ask him, I'd be like, "JP, what happens after we go left, right, back, forward? And what do we do then?" And he just looked at me. He's like, "Dude, just listen to the music and you'll be fine." and that's true. You just go with it. And by the time I got to Crested Butte, I was all in on animation. So I raised my hand for every opportunity to be on stage. And Gus definitely took animation very seriously. And I loved it for that.
And was it around nearing the end of this season that you thought you would like to switch from Mini Club, or did you have that idea before Crested?
Well, you'll hear me mention Vlad Malin quite a bit, because he, to this day, is definitely one of my, if not my best friend of all time. And I got to work with him a little bit in Sandpiper, and then he went to Turks and Caicos. And I'd only been to a tropical island once, and it was on vacation with Club Med to Paradise Island, where I met you. And we can talk about that later. But I always knew that Turks and Caicos, adult village, heck yeah, sign me up. But then you really needed to have a few seasons under your belt before you kind of got a chance to go where you wanted to go, unless a chief of village or sports said, "Hey, come with me." So in Crested Butte, I didn't know what I was going to do. I was just going to go with my effector wherever she told me I needed to go. But Vlad had talked to Josh Cryer, JK, who was the chief of sports in Turks while I was in Crested Butte, and said, "Hey, we need to bring this Brian guy over to Turks. He'll be great." And so my effector told me that. And when they offered me that position, the land sports position in Turks and Caicos, I didn't even hesitate. I was like, "Sign me up."
Okay. And Alessandro is your chief of village this season in Turks, 2004?
Yep. The late Alessandro, he, another I mean, I don't know who gets luckier than me with my Chief of Villages, but I mean, it went from Hammered, all my all-time favorite, Gus. I mean, you can't argue Gus. And then if anyone was lucky enough to work with Alessandro, you already know he was incredible as well.
So Turquoise, everyone loves Turquoise. Do you have a JoJo story? I'm required to ask you by law.
Yeah, I don't even know. I must have seen him once or twice in Turks. I've worked Turks and Caicos or Turquoise about, I think, 4 times, maybe 5. I have to look at my notes, but I definitely saw JoJo every season. No really amazing stories other than he's amazing in himself. I did swim out and try to find him one time. I mean, I saw him cresting out in the water. I think, locking up the security boat. And I think I caught a glimpse of him because I had my goggles on. But it was just fun to listen to the GMs, because every time a GM would come and hope they would see him, if they got a chance to see him, the light in their eyes after saying, "Hey, I saw JoJo." That was enough. People love seeing him, and is he still around? I don't even know.
Yeah, he is. That thing's going to outlive me and you, I think. I mean,
amazing.
I was there in '94, and that thing is still there.
Amazing.
All right. Anything else happen in Turks?
A lot I can't talk about.
Yeah. I was looking for the ones, like, even I have clean stories from my first season in Turks.
Yeah.
Honestly, I do. Okay. But if not, it's cool. We can move to
Tons.
Okay.
Turks and Caicos, my first season was phenomenal. Alessandro, JK, Steve Buckland. Steve Buckland I think that was his last season. It was a pleasure to meet him and hear all of his stories. And that's one thing that I have a lot of stories, but I loved listening to Geo stories. And I was always the young guy. So it was these guys that had been around for a while. Aranyo stories. Jenner would come and do a season here and there and listen to him and Red. Just absolutely loved hearing those stories because I was kind of at the beginning of my adventure with Club Med. And those stories really just motivated me to try another season. What else is in store? You guys have such great stories. And my career in Club Med really was because of the guys and girls that I got to learn from and hear from in my early seasons.
Nice. Well, yeah, I know I'm kind of hamstringing you a bit with the Turquoise, but what about the New York charter? So this must have been, I guess, your first encounter with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Different, huh?
Yeah, definitely different. Great. I mean, number one thing, they come in, and I'm sure we all have a very similar story. They come in, you say, "Hey, how you doing? Welcome," and they just look at you and go, "What? What do you want?" No, exactly. I need to show me the bar is, show me the room is.
Yeah.
Okay, and yeah, if it's your first welcome, your first couple of weeks at Turks, you're like, "Oh, this is going to be rough," but you realize real quick, halfway through their week, they are a different breed. They're like, "Oh my God. You guys aren't trying to sell me anything. You guys are great. You guys are having fun. We're having fun. I finally don't have to answer my phone. I'm going to extend my stay for another week." And so, yeah, the New Yorkers, they were rough at the beginning, but always the best at the end. Even halfway through, they were the best.
Yeah, they brought the energy, right? They made it unique.
Huge.
Yeah,
huge.
For sure. Now, so were you in ski instructor when you were at Crested Butte the first time? Did you have to get some kind of paperwork in order? Because I see after Turks, you go back to Crested, but as a ski instructor. So was there some kind of diploma you needed or no?
Yep. Oh, every instructor needs to pass their level 1. I can't remember the acronym, but there's an official. There's a Canadian affiliation, and then there's a North America or an American United States affiliation. I can't remember, CSA something, or anyway. I had to pass a pretty tough test. I mean, I was a pretty muscle my way through my skiing. The accreditation you have to pass is it's definitely more. It's actually geared around teaching. Like, how do you teach someone to be a better skier? So you've got to not only be able to ski, but explain what a student is doing wrong or right, and how to perfect or tweak their style to improve their ability. Level 1 was tough. Level 2, they say, was the hardest. And then there's 3 and 4. And we had a few 4s at Crested Butte. I only passed level 1. I didn't even attempt level 2. But yeah, I did pass that test my second season at Crested Butte. It was great. Learned a lot.
And I see they sent another Australian chief of village there, right? Joey Templin.
Yeah.
And
another great one.
What was that like?
Phenomenal. And he loved animation too. And I found that even when I talk now, people ask, what's your favorite thing about Club Med? And I'll say the people first. The stage time, the shows were so much fun, and then obviously the locations were great as well. But yeah, Joey was big on to animation, and he had energy. I can't say a bad thing about Joey Templin. Such a great dude, and yeah, great, another great season.
Okay. So yeah, you kind of sandwich Crested in between two singles villages, I see, because then after Crested, you go to Cancun, Land Sports in 2005 for the summer season with Hendel Duplessis, correct?
Yes, sir.
And James Martin was still there, I think, when you got there. Yeah,
he was either there or he came later. I think he's probably there.
Yeah, he was there. Like I was there 2004, 2005. So when I left, you came in, and James was at Sailing then.
Yep.
And
James
you're right. That's where I met old MC Nuck Nuck, as we used to call him. Shout out to MC Nuck Nuck. He'll find that funny. Okay. And we love.
I got a quick story about James. Can I tell it real quick?
Yeah. As long as he doesn't mind you telling it, no problem.
He doesn't mind, I'm sure. I got a few fun stories about James. James is probably one of the smartest geos I know. It's funny because you talk to him and you look at his lifestyle and just
he's got that voice, right? That ultimate laid back, chill, Matthew McCartney, whatever.
Yeah. You think, oh, this is just a dumb surfer guy. Yeah. Man, he is probably one of the smartest geos I know.
Yes.
And he, in Sandpiper, my first season, he was a bartender, then he switched over to sailing. And I remember I burnt through my bar books like crazy because, of course, being a first season, and me, I'd never danced, and every night I got to dance. So every night I'm having a few drinks, if not a few too many. And so after 3 days, I don't have any more bar books. And I'm like, oh man, this is going to be an expensive job. So finally, I see James one day, and he's like, hey, I got to show you something. I'm like, okay, what? He's like, when you're having dinner, this is all you got to do. And he would grab water pitchers and he'd dump them out, and then he'd go to the unlimited beer tap that we had in the restaurant, and he would fill them up, and he'd grab 2 bottles of wine. He'd sit down at his table with his guests, and then they would just drink, and they would have fun, have great conversation. And that was another thing that was tough. I never sat at a table with people I didn't know. And I learned real quick that I never needed to spend another bar book, especially in Sandpiper, if James Martin was around. So that was a great trick of the trade. And I thank James for saving me probably thousands of dollars.
Yeah. And being on the blacklist. Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
But your time in Cancun, I think, was a little limited because I heard Hurricane Wilma went through there, right?
Yeah, short and sweet, but I packed it in. I mean, as you know, you did a season with Hendel. How many seasons did you do with Hendel?
Well, I did the year there with him.
You did.
Yeah. I would have loved Paradise. That. But it was a great year. Yeah. He stacked that team like all legends, So yeah, it was a pretty good, really good time.
Yeah, I was very thankful that I got to see the end of that crew, and JK was my chief of sports who came in and built another great crew. But yeah, to work with Simon and Joker and oh gosh, who else did you have there? I mean, you were there obviously.
Oh, we had Freddie at water ski.
Yeah,
Freddie Birmingham. Yeah. Red was there.
Yeah, you guys were. That was a great. And I mean, I always consider myself the young guy learning, and to come in and see how a real party, fun, GM focused, Village ran, and you could still have fun and have the GM really the focus. I mean, those vans that would take people to Daddy-O's
Yeah.
and yeah, that was another phenomenal season.
Did you have a favorite nightclub there? Mine was Coco Bongo. I was just curious if you were a Daddy-O's guy or a Coco Bongo guy. Which one?
I remember Coco Bongo, the show that they put on with like the
It
superheroes
was
flying
crazy.
around.
Yeah. Well, it's all the
Yeah,
stuff they did on the side. Like you have a guy
yeah,
sliding down all night. You have a guy sliding down a waiter with with a tray of
yeah.
cups, and he'd wipe out. And then the last time, I think the eighth time, he nails it. So he was just pretending to wipe out. There was always, there was everywhere you look, there was something going on. They had the compression air on the bars. So if the girls were wearing skirts, they would like, I'm like, what is this place? I've never been in a bar like that before since.
Yeah. Yeah, that was by far. The other bars were great, but that was the experience. That was like, whoa, this is so cool. I wish I would have had about 4 more months to really appreciate it. But yeah, I loved my time there. And then unfortunately Wilma came in and evacuated us, and the rest is history. I mean, I'm lucky to say that I was the last one for the adults only
That's
era
right.
of Cancun.
Yeah. So when it reopened, it became a family village, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And then, as usual, looking at your list, you sandwich singles villages with Crested Butte. Okay. But this time, oh, you got my one and only. He's not Australian. He's American, folks. Ryan Leach. Love that guy. Was my first chief of sports. I love Ryan Leach. So tell me, what's it like working with Ryan Leach?
Yeah, Ryan. So Ryan was kind of the guy that springboarded me into my next phase of Club Med. I mean, I was riding the wave. I was, you know, Summer Village, Winter Village, Summer Village, Winter Village. And you know what? They'd send me home every time in between. So I got lucky enough to go home for a few weeks and hang out with my family because I had to change my attire, right? You don't travel to Cancun with your skis and your boots and your all that stuff. So they would send me home every year or every end of season. Yeah, so I get to Crested Butte, and Ryan is awesome, and he knows who I've worked with, and we're both California kids, so we immediately bond. He's like, hey, I've got a lot of projects going on, and I want you to kind of run with the animation, and not run with the animation as being in charge of it, because I was a ski instructor and you're on the slope the whole time. But he's like, I don't want to be in the shows as much as I have in the past. And it was hard for him because he's a showman. He loves being in shows. He's like, I've just got other things I've got to handle. He said, I want you to kind of be the front. And so I did all the crazy signs, did all the shows. And then he's like, we want you to kind of move on into a chief of sports role eventually. And this is a great way to do it. So another season, another opportunity. Luckily I had a guy who was not a microphone, hog. He wasn't like, I got to be the guy. He let me kind of be the guy. And again, another great team. And I had a blast that year. Another great winter season.
Okay, so Ryan like kind of put you on the mic, right? Then
He put me on the mic. Yeah,
okay.
I learned a lot about that, and it was
yeah.
a lot easier said than done.
Oh yeah, it's something you got to do every day. Get beat up, go back and do it again. Until you get it right. Yeah. And of course, yes, after Crescent, Turquoise, Land Sports, summer 2006 with David Mayer.
Gosh, I did it again. Yeah.
You keep yeah. Well, no, but you're I mean, I can't think of anything. Like, I'm from Montreal. I stayed 10 years in Club Med because I hate winter. So at least you're doing it right after, whatever, 5 months of a snow season. Yeah, I need some beach. You did exactly what I would have done, like
Totally.
It's just fortunate you kept getting turquoise, right?
Oh God. I mean, it doesn't get any better, really. I think I got turquoise this time because this is where it gets a little shady, or not shady, but
hazy.
Definitely the wrong word. Hazy is definitely a better word. Strike shady from my comments in this interview, please.
It is struck.
Yeah, I can't remember if David Mayer because David Mayer had been a ski instructor at Crested Butte. And so I obviously knew him. I knew him my first season. He came in as chief of sports in Sandpiper. Then I worked with him a couple of years at Crested Butte. And I don't know if he asked for me to come to Turks because he knew me. I definitely wanted to go to Turks, so it could have been me just saying I want to go. But I got to go back to Turks, and I got to work his first season as chief of village. When you think it can't get any better, it always does. And that was another phenomenal season. David was an amazing chief of village. His wife was there. She was amazing. His team, you've always got hurdles if it's your first season. I can't really remember. I remember some issues, but David is just he's a gentleman and a scholar. He's one of those guys that he's just a true person, and he was able to handle everything in every situation with a very kind and respectful way. You hear those stories of chief of villages that are a little bit more on the authoritarian and dictatorship, da 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 da. Luckily, I didn't work with any of those, and David was the opposite of that. He was very empathetic, and yeah, another great year. No hurricanes, I don't think. Yeah, great year. Great another year in Turks and Caicos.
Okay, and then I see you do chief of sport training in Ixtapa. You reunite with Hammer, correct?
That's true. Yeah, I knew that I was, or they'd asked me if I wanted to be chief of sports, and I said, yeah. I feel like now I've got enough under my belt. I know the ropes. I'd love an opportunity. Yeah, they sent me over to Ixtapa. I think they were just opening up, and I got to work with Hammer for, I think it was a couple months, and he let me kind of run the show. And if you're working with Hammer, it's the respect is there. His geos love him, and if his geos love him, then they're going to love the people that he's got, in his management. And I had a great team, and yeah, it was a short 2 months training. He gave me what he knew, and then he says, "Good luck." Kind of kicked me out of the nest and sent me to good old Columbus Island for a whole year.
Wait. Yeah, before we get to that long year. Meanwhile, yes, as I told you before, I did 2.5 years there. So that was long. But the chief of sport training but was there anything that you hadn't done yet? Or like, I'm just curious what he threw at you. Is there
Let's see, what did we really do? I've always wanted to go to a stage, and I never had. That was a word that was so.
Yeah, you're lucky. Oh boy, it was horrible. I didn't learn a damn thing. We were exhausted the whole time. You're 8 hours in a classroom, for God's sakes. Here you are, your whole Club Med career, you're on your feet, 6-7 days a week, and then they stick you in a classroom for 7-8 hours.
Yeah,
that was brutal. You should be fortunate you did not do it. Like, you had actual in a village training. You had Hammer there. It must have been awesome.
Yeah. Compared to that, you're right. I would have not enjoyed being in a classroom. And I did LSM training later on, and I did enjoy some of it. I remember hearing a story from JK. He did chief of sports training back in his day, and it was like, get up as early as you can, do every single activity, be the first one up, the last man standing. Whoever is still standing after a week, gets promoted. It's kind of an old school way, and they realized that wasn't really the way. And then there was the other side. Let's sit in a classroom and talk numbers. And yeah, there's some value to that, because you obviously have some things that you need to look at on the business side. But with Hammer, I think it was a little bit of both. I needed to be up in the morning. Stapa wasn't really a party place. There definitely were some nights. So, but by this time, I've done 2 seasons in Turks and a season in Cancun. So I was definitely trained well on getting up early and staying out late. And I was always an athlete, so that helped. I'd like to think that I take people as kind of my priority. I realized that the teams you weren't going to be any better than your team was. So, and that's Hammer's philosophy, I think. So I couldn't have learned from a better guy. And yeah, I think I might have failed in Columbus had I not had the past that I'd had, because Columbus was tough. It was fun, but it was definitely one of the biggest learning moments in my Club Med career.
Well, at least you had a nice room to go back to, right? Come on, you can't beat those rooms, right?
No, there were definitely some perks.
And that beach, like a near private beach, no one else is on it but the Club Med people.
Yeah.
Were they still doing Wednesday night reggae night at the Riding Rock when you were there? Was that still a thing, or no? Or no one was going
No,
out?
they didn't. We would go to Riding Rock from time to time in Columbus for those what were those pina coladas, and but we didn't guests didn't go over there. There wasn't anything that was structured. At least we would go over on our day off from time to time, but it was all pretty much right there in the village.
Did you ever go into Coburn Town to get Pop Tarts like I did? Sorry,
No,
no, no.
I don't think I
Yeah,
did.
when I found there were Pop Tarts in Coburn Town, I was going every chance I got.
Yeah, yeah.
Would you?
If you've been there that long, you look
Yeah,
for anything that reminds you of home, right?
that's right. That's right. Now, did you get to do any diving at all? Do you scuba dive? Did you learn or take a resort course? Anything?
Yeah, so I learned to scuba dive in college. One of the required courses in the kinesiology teacher education course was you needed to do a water safety, and one of the options was to learn to scuba dive or take a lifeguard training. So I actually did both, and so I came to Club Med with the certification. So yeah, I dove in Turks. I dove once in Cozumel when I was in Cancun, and then I dove in Columbus quite a bit. Saw some amazing hammerheads. Yeah, did a couple night dives. I mean, just when I'm sure you've done this. You tell people now, oh, yeah, when I was younger, I worked in the Turks and Caicos Islands or in the Bahamas, and people are like, "Oh, wow, that's cool." And then you tell them, "Yeah, and I also did this," and you try not to. You're not bragging. You're just like, this was my life. Like, people wait years to go scuba diving in Columbus, and I did it 4 times in 1 week for free. And it's hard not to gloat, but yeah, what a life. I'll always be very just very thankful.
And your chief that year was Laurent Michaud, correct?
Yeah, yeah, great guy. I mean, he talk about patience. You got to think if you didn't choose your team and you're looking at your assignment list and you go, okay, I got a first season American chief of sports, French. He's a 1 out of 7, and this is a French speaking resort. So you got to think he's not too excited about that. But I would never have known. He utilized my sex appeal because I was a California kid, and a lot of French, to meet a California kid, it's kind of cool. So I played off that as well. And with his assistance and another great team, I was able to survive.
Well, you must have noticed, like me, the years I spent in Columbus. I've never been at a Club Med where so many repeat visitors, like so many. So you must have been, if you were there a year, you must have seen people at least 2 or 3
Yeah.
times, right? That you
Right.
recognize, correct? I mean, people
Yep.
love that Club Med.
Yeah, you're right. That was the first time. And I learned a lot there that for a while, there was this weird thing of like, you're coming to my village. So this is what we do. And that's a little arrogance, of course. But then I realized in Columbus that the village is theirs. Like they know everybody. They've been there a million times. They know what they want. They know what they've had, and they don't want anything less. And I I understood that after about 6 months when I started seeing those return customers. So another great learning experience to realize that, yeah, when you go somewhere, you expect it to be the same or better when you come back. That was a great educational moment for me in my development in Club Med. And Laurent, it was his first time there, but he'd been around a while and he understood that. And yeah, that was great. I actually got to work with Mike Clark. Mike Clark was my land sports kind of polyvalent geo, who later on became an amazing chief of village.
He's from Australia, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, nice.
You could see it. I mean, from I think he'd done 2 seasons maybe prior, but his energy, yeah, you get lucky when you get guys like that. I had a lot of good guys and girls on that team. It was, I mean, someone's looking out for me because I had great people, great teams.
And then they send you to open the newly renovated village of Ixtapa after this, right? Was Jean-Marc Desi chief of village?
Yeah, yeah. I can't remember if there was a break there or if I went straight over.
you might have had a. I mean, because you left Columbus in 2008, and then you started Ixtapa. I mean, maybe hopefully they gave you 2 weeks. Let's just say hopefully you got 2 weeks
Probably
vacation. But then and then opening up. What did they renovate there? Was it a massive renovation? Or
huge,
oh, okay.
huge. Yeah, big. Like they went from, I can't remember if this is when the 4 Trident or 5 Trident rooms came out, but they started a butler service, a room service.
A butler
I don't
service?
I don't know if there was butler. I think
Oh,
Butler's
okay.
was at Cancun, so it might have just been room service, but really nice rooms. The nicest rooms I'd ever seen in Club Med.
Nicer than
And so yeah,
Columbus?
oh yeah, yep.
Oh, wow.
Nice,
Okay.
yeah, beautiful, like brand new, big bathtubs, view of the ocean, their own little pool. There was an area they had their own private pool. But yeah, a very amazing renovation. I'd done a couple renovations, I think maybe one prior to that, and I did one after. But this was the smoothest. I don't know why, but yeah, I got there, and Jean-Marc Desi was the chef de village, and I got to work again with my good friend Jeff Sabapathy, who's another one of your Canadian buddies up there. Jeff, I
Okay.
got to work with. I got it. I'll After this, I'll tell a story of Jeff. But yeah, I got to work with him and Mamdou. I don't know. Do you know Mamdou?
I know the name. Yes.
Oh gosh, we had a blast. Mamdou was chief of entertainment. Jeff was chief of mini club, and I was chief of sports. And then we had Eduardo was our LSM, so he was on his way up to become the chief of village. So I mean, we had rock stars at the top. Jean-Marc had plenty of experience in Club Med, so he knew what he was doing. Another great group of people. I got to meet Joe Pilon. You know Joe.
Oh
You were with
yeah,
her in
Joe.
Cancun.
Yeah. She was sailing there, right? Like,
Yep,
oh
stud.
yeah. I
And
remember we were with her the night like she was leaving. Like we hit a bar. We were trying to convince her to stay out all night so she'd have a better story. Yes, stay out all night, arrive no sleep. It's going to be a great story. I don't know if she ever took us up on that, but yeah, I do recall being with
that
her that
girl,
night with a lot of XGOs. Yeah, before she went to
yes.
Stapa.
Oh, she was
Yes.
amazing. She was amazing. Yeah, a bunch of great people there. Had a great season. I only did, I think, six. I don't think I did a whole year. I think I did 6 or 7 months.
Yeah, and I think you took like a break after that season,
I
right?
did. I
Because
did. I took a break.
then you go back to Turquoise in 2010 for the one, two. I think this is your third time in Turquoise. I think.
Yeah.
One, two. Yeah,
Good
your
old
third time.
Vlad.
Yeah.
Vlad called me up. I was at home. I was teaching. I'd done the credential program. I was getting my teaching credential, and Vlad calls me up. He's like, "Hey, I need some help." And I'm like, "What do you need?" He's like, "I need someone to run the beach in Turks and Caicos." And I said, "Say no more."
Oh, really?
And
Okay, so
so,
this wasn't a case of just when you think you're out, they pull me back in. So you were happy to go help them out.
oh yeah, oh yeah. I knew that teaching was a passion of mine, but I just wasn't committed to it. I really, I knew there was something else I needed to do. So, and it wasn't Club Med necessarily, but maybe it was. I still was. I don't know how old I was. Maybe 34. I mean, I started doing the math, but no, I was probably 30. Probably wasn't even. I don't know, 32. Anyway, yeah, I was still a young guy, and yeah, I went out there. I think right before New Year's, or maybe it was even New Year's, and I'd never been a chief of beach before. I got to relinquish kind of that chief of sports title, and running the beach. I was always an avid sailor, and I loved the water, so it was an easy role to go into. A lot of responsibility. I really have another respect for water sports in general. You know, there's a lot of things that can go wrong, but again, another opportunity. I had a great team, half Canadian, half I think a Brazilian. I mean, I had a lot of guys that knew the water, knew sailing. Great, great season. Vlad, I mean, you can't have a bad season with Vlad.
Was he like LSM there? I think, or
I think he might have been LSM, or he
okay,
might have been. I think he might have been chief of entertainment.
okay.
I don't know for sure. One of those, because I think the next time I went, because I did go another time, didn't I
Yeah,
not?
yeah. In 2011, he did like
Yeah.
another 7 month stint with Bark, Chief of Village Bark.
Yeah, I think he was the LSM on that one.
Okay. All right. And then 2012, okay, you're at Sandpiper. Okay, Chief of Sports for another renovation, right?
Yeah.
Lionel Pirot. So
Yep.
I guess, well, let me ask you this. I guess, were you saddened when you heard the news that Sandpiper was sold?
Yeah, I think everybody, when anything is done, you have those memories, and you think that they're attached to that place, and they kind of are, but at the same time they're not. Whether or not that village lasted another 20 years, would I wish I could go back and show my kids? I think that's the thing that I miss. I wish I could take my kids and do a little memory lane kind of tour. So the fact that I guess I still kind of could, because it's still there, but it wouldn't be the same experience. But Club Med is evolving, so it's never going to be the same experience. I'm happy for Club Med to make that deal, and I'm hoping that they can put that cash into somewhere else and develop some other opportunities. But that's the circle of life, right?
Yeah. You might have already answered this question because you've already mentioned so many names. Because usually I ask people, who did you enjoy working with? But I think you covered. I mean, but if we left someone out, please tell me, because I think if
I
every
know I
village you
did.
mentioned. Okay, well, don't send Brian any angry emails, guys. The list would be so long that if you thanked everyone. But I do know you did mention a lot for each. But if there's someone that comes to
Yeah.
mind, with the time we have left, please just tell me to shut up and tell me who it was.
Yeah, Cedric Kleisler. Cedric Kleisler was a good guy. He was one of the guys I worked with on the beach. Tall guy. Lives in Florida now. His mom was French. His dad was American. They were Club Med back in the day, and he became one of my good friends in Turks. We only got a short 6 months, but we met back up a couple times in Sandpiper on vacation. Amanda Pillow, she was a phenomenal girl that I worked with in Cancun, and I think I worked with Amanda in the most villages, not the longest period of time, besides Vlad. Amanda, I think Cancun, Turks and Caicos, Sandpiper, and I think Crested Butte. Jesse Rachel, we obviously both know Jesse. Jesse's a phenomenal girl, still a good friend today. I think I mentioned Boone. I've mentioned JP DeLay, still a good friend. JK, one of my best friends here in Las Vegas. Jeff Sabapathy again. So Jeff, real quick before, I know we're running low on time, but Jeff, his first season I think was Sandpiper. I was just finishing my first 9 months there, and I was the first person there every day, the last person to leave, because I just wanted things to go right. I respected Hammer so much. I wanted things to go perfect. And kids, you got to make sure. Trevor Ray was my chief of mini clubs, so I loved him too. And then all of a sudden, I've got like another month, and I'm just starting to feel that burnout. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm still here, and I'm still doing this magic number thing. And Jeff comes in. He's like, hey, how you doing? I'm Jeff. What are you doing? I was like, oh, I'm just doing the paperwork and getting these kids signed in, signed out. So can I do that? I'd like to learn. I'm like, 100%. So boom, hand him over the book. Next day, I show up 15 minutes early. Guess who's 20 minutes early? Jeff. And he's got the book. He's got everything's dialed in. And I just kind of took a step back and went, oh, this is good. And then I'm there at the evening. He's still there. He's like, dude, just go home. I got it. And Jeff, I mean, talk about a professional. He just came in, and the last month, I just assisted Jeff. And if he needed something, I was there. But I'll always remember him just coming in and taking over. And it was his first season, and he was just so dialed in. And luckily, he and I got to do some villages down the road, Turks, and then Ixtapa, and really loved working with that guy.
Yeah, guys like that are one in a million. You're lucky if you get one on your team, right? Your sports team, but
Yeah,
that are just they're from the jump, they're just on it.
on it.
Is there anything you miss about Club Med, Brian? Do you have time to think
Oh,
about it at all?
the people. The beach is always the beach, and by all means, the beaches were beautiful, but the people are definitely what I miss, because that's what I love the most about it. When it comes down to it, we all bled, sweat, tears, up early, hungover. We were all in it together, and I'm sure you've used the analogy. I've heard it a million times. It's like the military without the blood and guts, but maybe a little bit of blood and guts. And not to take anything away from the military, because that's definitely a whole nother respect. but just the amount of time and hours and exhaustion, and to know you're doing it with other people that are going through the same thing, and you're doing it and you're living it and you're loving it. And yeah, I miss seeing those people every day. And luckily we have Facebook now, so we can kind of connect. Living in Vegas, I get to see a lot of them. But yeah, I'd say I miss the people the most.
Yeah, you have quite a big contingent of ex-Joes in Vegas, I see.
Yeah, lucky for that. Very
Yeah,
lucky.
it's almost every third interview I do, someone's in Vegas. So I know there's a lot living out there or moved to there. So yeah, and JK, yeah, please give my best to JK when you see him.
I will.
That
I
guy.
will. I will.
Let me ask you another question. Is there possible that you had a magical season? I'm wondering if it's your first one because it was your first one, or do you just like them all for different reasons? Was there one that stood out to you?
It's funny. I thought you were going to ask me if I'd ever go back.
Well, I never asked that because I think we in a way we all would, right? Like,
Yeah. Oh gosh, is there a magical season? Oh man.
like, is there one that for me it was my first because I don't know, something was just hitting on all cylinders. I mean,
Yeah.
I do think others were special, but I was just curious if you had that one. If you don't, it's okay. You can like them all for different reasons. I was just curious.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm with you. I think I could say the first one because of so many reasons, because it was such a wow factor. But if I really analyze it, which I analyze almost everything, it is the reason I had the full experience that I had. So if I would have come in with a I hate to say it, but a management system that wasn't as amazing as Hammer, and there were a few, we all know. Maybe I wouldn't have done another season. Maybe I would have, maybe I would have done one more. But to say I had that crew, I'd have to say the first one was just the one that really I'm the most thankful for. They were all great, but that first one is the one that I can give the credit to.
Talked a lot about crazy signs and dancing. So I have to know, did you have a favorite one? Did you have a favorite crazy sign? Like, is that one that comes on in the grocery store and you have to physically restrain yourself from dancing side to side and clapping? Is there that one out there or no?
I remember doing Sex Bomb in Turks and Caicos with Vlad, and we had put the stage in the Turks and Caicos bar, and it was pretty high, and we were really close to the speakers, and it was one of those sold out weeks. And I remember the music being loud. I was on stage with Vlad and probably Amanda Pillow, Pascal. I can't forget Pascal, one of my best girlfriends of all time. I mean, it was I knew her for maybe a year. She's now married with kids and I haven't seen her forever, but she was one I can't leave out. But we're on stage and I just looked over at Vlad and I'm like, this is amazing. We're dancing. There's all these people dancing with us. The music's loud. And I can't say Sex Bomb's my favorite. It was definitely a great one, but I remember that moment of doing Crazy Signs. I love them all. I mean, anywhere from Ice Cream to Hands Up to She Bangs to, I mean, all of them. I don't think there was one I didn't like. So
Okay, bigger person than I am.
Yeah, I mean, there was a couple that we did too many times.
But yeah, well, to me, it was the La Bonne Franquette on Elegant Night, in a sweltering teeter, and the chief wants to do it 4 more times.
4 more times. Yeah, I would have to. Okay, I'll agree with you on that for sure. That's definitely.
Oddly now, I can listen to that song and it actually touches me now. I can't believe I'm saying this. Okay, so there you have it. Okay, I'm not saying I like the song, but I just remember the good stuff now. I'm sure like you just focus on the positive, like all the other stuff goes away and it's just the fun that you had, right?
That's exactly it. And we all had bad years, maybe my bad years, bad seasons, or a season we thought wasn't our favorite, but even that one that I have, and I won't mention which one it was, but now when I think about it, I only really remember the positive. I remember feeling really like ready to go, but I remember mostly the positive, and I can't even think of a negative. I mean, if I really dive into it, I can, but I would do it all again. Even the season that was the hardest, I would do it again because it built me. So.
Well, Brian, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us here today.
Greg, thank you, man. I really appreciate it. I've enjoyed listening to the other interviews you've done, and this experience has been fun for me because I've always, again, I think I told you at the beginning, I always wanted to kind of draft my timeline so I could really get it down on paper and think to see if I'd done it right. Is this really the year? And you corrected me a couple times, but it's been a pleasure to recap all that. Yeah, I look forward actually to listening to this down the road, and maybe even to share it with my kids as they get older. So thank you for the opportunity. Appreciate it.
Well, everyone, that was Brian from Red Bluff, California. I know I can only say Red Bluff once, I'm sure, but I like saying that, Red Bluff. Like a cool place. Now living in Vegas. So what'd you say goodbye to all our listeners, Brian?
All right, everybody. It's been great. If any of you come to Vegas, let me know. If we work together, if we didn't, long live Club Med, and maybe we'll reunite someday on a beach and do a little hands up.
Thank you so much, Brian. And we will see you all next week. Bye.